Good evening. William F. DeVault, according to Yahoo, the romantic poet of the internet, according to the National Beat Poetry Foundation, the U.S. National Beat Poet Laureate Emeritus. My reign finished up a couple of years ago, but I still get to put the emeritus on the end. Tonight, we're going to be talking about my book, Love Gods of a Forgotten Religion, published in 2002. Now, not all of the poems were written in 2002. Some of them go all the way back to 1973. But the main theme of this book was romance and the mythology of romance and eroticism. And it's a very nice book, to my taste at least. But I'm that way. I'm going to start with a series of poems that were written in the 70s during a particularly intense relationship. The first one is Last Night. Now, some of the poems I'm going to read tonight you may have heard individual readings of elsewhere. That's okay. I'm doing this to get the full context of the book across in one motion. Last Night. You cannot go back. Last night is now dead, and all that remains are the stains on the bed. Do not seek excuses. We all find regret. It is part of our being, like blood, spit, and sweat, and just as fluidic, transient and moist. Evaporated pleasures we deny were our choice. Though often I regret things, curses cast at time may wash away the bloodstains, but they never change the crime. This next poem is called My Electric Lady. It was actually inspired by my girlfriend's shirt. She had a deep blue shirt with an electric blue silhouette of a geisha with an umbrella. Beautiful shirt. And we used to refer to her as the Electric Lady. And then one night this poem came and mugged me. And when you hear references to the Electric Lady or to Psyche, because sometimes muses have more than one label, we're talking about the same young woman. Dance for me, my electric lady. Sing a song that gently soothes my soul. Tomorrow, I must leave your world again, my love, as I strive to reach the endless journey's goal. I once gave up my poor and mortal birthright, so that I might touch the sky and see true things. My love, I'm not so sure I would have started if I could have seen the pain this voyage brings. Once again, my electric lady, touch me and bring forth my too rare smile. For the moment I am just another mortal, and a little love will last me quite a while. If we had only met before the present, and what is gone had made me what I am, a love would be that all who live might envy. I cannot come back this way again. For the final time, my electric lady, give me all that I may take within my vow. Tomorrow is my child, and a gift to the stars, and the night is just my brother, here and now. If you've ever been to one of my readings, you've probably run across this poem, Monument, written in 73. It's one of the better early poems. 1973 was a big year for me. There's a lot of good pieces that came out of that year. I crave a cup, a bowl, a mug of your heart's steel, unsheathed before by mortal or god for rage or lust of things both unneeded and forever unreal. It is the quintessence and the dust. Dreams do not stand before you and call the blade. Dreams do not walk or breathe or love you as I do, and can, and will if given just a moment's shade from the moon of pain and the stars that lie. My words shall be eternal, syntax monuments of you. Beneath the tread of centuries, stone shall fall, paint peel, music rise to ears long deaf. But now, and from this night on, you are immortal. The next 3 poems, well, next 4 poems, all revolve around a common theme. In 1979, that relationship ran aground. And it really all came down to her asking me to quit writing poetry. And that's basically like asking a bird not to fly. To me, poetry is essential to my mental health. Without it, I'm not me. So I thought about it for a week or two, and then I called her up and read her, not this poem, but the poem that follows it. But this one kind of sets the stage. It's called Once. Choose your weapon. Clasp the hilt. Behold the plain where blood is spilt. Steal my thunder, steal my dream, but tamper not with poet's theme. You loved me once, when flowers played at wind's command, when dreams smiled, but only at those who held a lover's hand. You loved me, but I was not aware of all that meant, and the delicate blossom, sterile, fell with morning petals, its energy spent. You loved me, and we can never return to that sphere. I didn't know what it was we shared, and only now may I shed a tear. What's next is a poem I don't think I've read in public before. I wrote it to let her know that I was calling off our engagement. The title of it is Threnody for Times Now Past, March 17th, 1979. So I know when this was written. The loom of doom had woven us together. We who are anathema to reason, the ending of a season of hope. I would not be able to cope if not for you. My dreams would be sterile and cracked. The bags are packed. I despise the coldness that wraps us in its cloak. I choke back the lacrimal emissions. Our positions are self-revealing. Big boys do not cry, but they can die. The feast is done, the beast is gone and left us. So alone we listen to the breeze. The thief flees and leaves us to measure the loss. I cannot, shall not, dare not count this the end. Never was there such a friend. Call upon me, fall upon me in times of pain. More remains than may be acknowledged in this moment. The seed still lives, but the shoots are now trimmed to encourage proper growth. I'll never forget, after I read that to her, I said, "Did you understand what I'm saying?" And she said, "Yes, I apologize. I'd forgotten what you could do." And then she hung up the phone. She was going to school at Central Missouri State University in Warrensburg, Missouri, and I drove out there to see her a few weeks later. We tried to see if we could patch things back together, and it didn't work. And this is the poem I wrote about that visit and the aftermath, called Warrensburg Farewell. We will probably never meet again, this side of the grave. That is why, so tenaciously, I save the memories we shared. We cared so much. Together we were a force even nature feared. But striving as one, we found we had cleared separate and saddened trails. We failed to cling as once we had. The bonds dried and broke. And when our farewells we spoke, we knew all along it was for life. We had challenged fate for a chance to love, but the wind was cold that blew between us. It told us I would never call you wife. Once in a while in my writings, you'll run across the figure known as the Nemacorn. I love playing with words. Nemacorn is actually a contraction of a couple words, meaning a nothing or no one unicorn. And in the case of this word and this poem, I've been asked over the years what a Nemacorn really is, and it's one of two things. It is either a black unicorn with a silver horn, or it is somebody or something you love so much it takes on mythic proportions in your mind and in your heart. This poem is just called Nemacorn. And in my willful innocence, I slit the fragile throat of the dream heart, the Nemacorn that bore me to my Rubicon. Its blood, a shaft of crystal whispers, gave ammutation to the feelings I feared and slew out of time now gone. The sniggering empaths capered no more, but lay in pain among the orchids, crippled by the Nemacorn's gentle acceptance of my treachery and butchery, that placid brain caring not for the vengeance of the visceral. Dreamheart knew that time would slay me, time and regret that would be mine, when my all-too-mortal form failed in the icy waters, when I found my strength was set against powers beyond me, when passion paled. And in my willful innocence I slit the fragile throat of the dream heart, the Nemacorn that bore me to my Rubicon. Its blood, a shaft of crystal whispers, gave ammutation to the feelings I feared and slew out of time now gone. Over the years, I've loved a few. Too many, I don't know. I don't have the numbers at hand. But this is about when you realize that you're only going to live one life. A life I never lived, a reflection on the stagnation of time. A lover's soul I'll never realize when lost in warm embrace that communicates the hidden whispers we would never dare speak for fear that there are those who would, in jealousy, trace our hearts back to us and break us. For we are made weak by the hungry eyes. Iron now tempered in our most excellent warmth, images that dance where harlots once lay with thundering prophets that foretold the coming of this wind, and the voices of depths uncharted and immeasurable next to the stolen ocean of threats we made against ourselves. Idols now rubble that could not stem the icy hot flow of passions, and logic undammed by hells unknown to us, or anyone who dared to pluck the fabled blood gem from the face of the sun, and for which we atone. Do I really want to explain this next poem? Yes, I do, but I'll explain it after I read it. It's called Taking a Risk. A stolen kiss, a moment's whisper, held forever in a hidden second, sweetness beckoned, and the risk was there. Take the dare and seize opportunity. It does not knock, it caresses. The tresses enfold you and you swim in madness, but at least you do not swim alone. Then the moment is gone and the key secreted. An only chance, a decade dancer, beds make strange soulfellows of us all. The distant call sounds like an echo, hollow. The swallow lays claws on the eagle, his death ordained. He struggles not. The wind is hot and I should not be here. But then, neither should any who dread the paths they must tread in taking a risk. After my breakup with my fiancée, I wasn't seeing anybody, and an old friend of mine I'd known since middle school, Milton Stiles, some of you on this may know him, or may have known him, he's passed since then, called me up and he said, "Hey, a bunch of us are getting together over at so-and-so's trailer, come on over." No, thank you. No, come on over. Jan is dressed up in her sexy space girl outfit. She called herself Asterisk when she was dressed like that, which means star. He said, "Come on over and take a risk." I went over. About a year later, we were married, have 3 beautiful children. I took a risk. When I would refer to my original fiancée as the Electric Lady, she would refer to me as the Nuclear Man. Don't ask. I don't know what's in everybody's mind and heart. This is called Sons of Soft Sin. The Electric Lady, the Nuclear Man, no one shall match them, nobody can. Passions immortal now buried within, dreams this stillborn are the sons of soft sin. Warriors imperfect in perfection's pose, crucified the lily, the crocus, the rose. The garden was ravaged, the gardener fled to hide in the shadows, then bury the dead. Ask not for excuses or rationality's lies, children of endings, of dreams, of the skies. The electric lady, the nuclear man, once walked in soul step, never more can. I never explain this poem because I let people apply it as they wish. It's called Memories. It's a short one. Sleep tonight and dream of me. I'll answer to your call. We'll dance among the memories within your spirit's hall. I did a series of poems, a couple of which appear in this book, called The Faceted Sphere, which is about the alternate realities, the alternate paths we could have taken, or did take. This was the first one I did of the series, called The Faceted Sphere 1. The comfort of your kiss, so innocent that unicorns could watch without grief, so tempting that, for a moment, a brief aroma of brimstone flirted with my senses. There is mystery here, mystery and madness that begs me to hide from the call of questions best left unanswered and unasked, veiled confessions that carry within themselves passion and sadness, an ending without a beginning, an embrace shared by lovers in an alternate reality passes by and beyond. The riddle smiles at us, and we smile coyly at bonds that cannot hold us in this sphere, dreams and nightmares undared. We'll get back to the faceted sphere later in the book. Soon after we broke up, my original fiancée and I had a phone call in which she said, I know what went wrong. Well, I didn't love you enough. Really? She goes, yeah, I'm not even sure I really loved you at all. Ow. So, on a rare occasion, instead of writing from my perspective in the universe, I try to write from another person's perspective. This is not my thoughts. This is what she had expressed to me. I could not be this bitter. Sitting in the darkness, touching walls I cannot see, I finally realize some things that never more can be. And holding to the silence, I wait for never sounds that could help me hear my heart as it feverishly pounds. Alone, and with no options, and with no real chance to choose between the reaching and the failing for the things I dare not lose. You gave me a faith I had never found in friend or closest kin, a faith in self I'd buried inside, you forced out from within. And now you steal it coldly, without regard for the pain I might feel. And yet, to me, there's no matter. My love was never real. Ow. This next poem, soon after she and I broke up, I had a brief fling with her sister. I know. Don't judge. And I realized immediately that it was a stupid, I can't say stupid enough, thing. And I also realized she was very romantically predatory. And actually, after we broke up, she probably ended up dating or sleeping with about half my friends. It got really crazy. And I wrote this one poem about her. Generally, I don't like writing poems about people I'm pissed about. But it suggested itself. For those of you who are interested, the character of Arachne in Greek mythology was a seamstress who pissed off the gods, so they turned into her a giant spider. And this is called Arachne and Red Lace. Don't ask. Arachne and red lace. I wish that the memory would perish, so that the venom borne by metal fangs would leave these veins. A fire unworthy, a passion and an arrogant weakness not to cherish, but to serve as an example to those who dare to tread the spun chains of gossamer pheromones. They look so fragile when distant, but they are stronger than cobalt steel, and should a man seek his vanity in seizing them for a swift instant, he will find they turn that instant into an eon, a lifetime of scorched emotions and ravaged sanity. The venom is sweet and fiery. It answers prayers and fulfills fantasies that none dare even whisper except within the spinneret's weave. It makes a mockery of your heart and a trap of the tender seas you once treasured. It makes the dead for the living grieve. The crimson timepiece is a friend when the desire for the fire drives us on, Arachne urging with practice, spontaneity, and thirst. Thirst for the blood of new paramours, for soon she tires of your taste and leaves you in her path, pale and cursed. This transitions us to the new relationship after that, the woman who would become my first wife. It's called Icarus. Do not tempt fate, my love's Icarus. Surrender passions of the heart and soul to the reins of wisdom's subtle control. Your burns are yet unhealed. Flee Minos with me, mount to the skies, but listen to the counsel of time already spent sunbound. I found the sky before you. I learned to soar first. But misjudging the currents on dark occasion, even I lose my mind when the madness finds me, the intoxication of a new flight. Sail with me to Paralandra, but only if you dare. Look first to the course I chart. It is a treacherous one for any heart. Consider well the consequences. Your wings may be yet too soft for so long a journey. Your limbs may wither with fatigue. Do not form a league with corpses of past launchings. Leap with me from the parapet. The wind is ours. Much is made in people who've written about my work, about my personal mythology, how I'll write something and later on it will echo in my real life or in other writings. In the fourth stanza of this, I talk about sailing with me to Paralandra. Paralandra was the title of a book by C.S. Lewis. It's a science fiction fantasy about a journey to what we call Venus to help them understand their moral equivalencies. And it's a beautiful book. In fact, it's such a beautiful book, when my first wife and I had our daughter, we named her Paralandra. So you can read into this, which occurred a few years before Perry was born. I was just going back to my own material. It happens. Here's a poem called Poet's Lament. Guess what? I was feeling kind of sad and unloved at one point. It happens. On white satin nights, romance always seemed real. Gentle illusion, something I cannot feel. Hollow and homeless, burning fireless coals. Damned by my history, damned by my goals. I wish I could feel something but pain. Smiles, not just sadness, as the source of the rain. Why can't I touch love? Are the gloves really cursed? Is the guard of perfection always damned to the worst? Self-pitying questions that belong but to me. Moments that burn out on the Avalon Sea. Music and magic everyone can recall, but I've never known them. No soft spirits call. For those of you who are familiar with the book and the movie, T.S. Garp, the movie starred Robin Williams, there was a subtext in the works about Garp writing a story about the magic gloves. And the magic gloves were gloves that were worn by a man that, when he wore them, he could touch people and make them happy and make them forget their problems. But they didn't work on him. And a lot of writers I know are like that. They can write things and say things that inspire and delight people, but they feel kind of like they can't do it to themselves. It's unfortunate. This is a little less bewailing and a little more, I guess, macho of the same feeling. It's called Axeman's Dance. Locked, sealed. The clenched fist of stale earth is spread. The potter's field is my soul's epitaph. Great cost. great worth. A price for pride, a prayer for the passion past. Stillborn is tomorrow. Stillborn, twisted, decayed from inside. And I am the pain father, the poisoned thorn. The gentle hand bleeds, then the wound heals. The flight from his sight saves only her. He is consumed. When all that lives needs more than he has, he shall be gone. The poet raves. Mad with pain and fire, he denies himself, deifies himself, destroys himself. The fire burns with deceptive coolness. Damned by lies, he has nothing. Even his soul is sold. Morbid wealth. Pennies of self-pity paid against an old debt. No way out. Endurance is the pattern. Pain, the thread. Memory is but mockery and madness. Madness and the axeman's dance. For years I was working through how the first relationship had fallen apart. It was my fault, I know that. But the fact that she just at one point went, that's an old relationship, I need to move on, I need to get better, and which was probably the healthiest thing to do. But I'm a writer, what do I know? This is called Psyche Has Not Time for Failure. This is the first time I transitioned her from the Electric Lady to Psyche. Dreams of steel and acid flood oceans, brimmed with the time long spent away from the core of our friendship, and passions we thought would never fail us. We play at memory, we curse the soft sun's sins that hack us with a cruel and cunning blade we thought was ours to control. Frail flesh, beaten by time and leaden thoughts that drag us to earth, our tears moistening the dry soil we fall to as battles fought before the end become inconsequential. Spring flowers in the November winds where we ought to have considered the metal of our rings and not the fire they were forged in. Regret is not my destiny, but my spine is twisted by the noose of failed chance. I dangle, I suffer. I die on the line between genius and hell. The poisoned lance of falsehood proves my blood. My crime is all that remains. I have lost the dance. And Psyche has not time for failure. Well, we're almost out of the self-pity. Almost. Give me a couple more poems. Looking back. This is, I used to joke that this was a You're Lost, Toots poem. There's a Doonesbury strip where one of the female characters breaks up with one of the male characters, and he's trying to think of something to say, something hard and bitter, and he just yells, "You're lost, Toots," and that's a little wimpish. This is called Looking Back. To you I was always a perversion, a diversion to be held in private and kept at arm's length before friends. From your pain I learned hatred, but you had bred yourself to fall, to wait and whimper softly for the end. I was an embarrassment to you. No one knew all that I dreamed because you hid it from them in shame. You left me alone to die. When I asked why, you said you didn't want to see it happen. You never came. I learned bitterness and loneliness and 1,000 pains that I had never imagined in that darkness. When I cried out, I was put on hold. When I grew cold, I was told you were too busy with other things. You even loved like business. Now you say, I hurt you. I knew more pain than you will ever hear of when you lost faith in me and quit. You say you lived a lie. You made me die and then said you never loved me. And now, looking back, I can believe it. I told you it was a little bitter. Now let's pull this out a little bit into more etheric concepts. Entropy consumed. When passions fade, afraid of the fragile transience of the human heart, let the power loose. Refuse the proffered cooling of the quintessential part of mortal being. Seeing with narrowed eyes is not for you. Energy flows from a fire higher in intensity than any I have seen since the snows of entropy took me to an early grave. I wear the face of Lazarus within my tomb, a womb now, fashioned from the desert dust of Megiddo and the rebirth. The worth of any currency is in the cellar, and so I beg a price for ice, melted by your presence. Can the flint and steel that strikes the spark in dark corners of ancient kindling deny the fire that heals? A few years later, hey, we're almost done with this section. A few years later, her mother passed. I knew her mother very well. She's really the only woman in my life I ever considered my mother-in-law, even though we were never technically married. And I didn't want to interrupt anything, so I sent flowers to the funeral home. 12 black roses. Black roses are kind of my signature flower. And I wrote on the card, "By grief is the shadow granted substance. By pain is the sinner reborn saint." A day or two later, this poem flowed out of those 2 lines. It's called Theocracide at Mach 10e6. By grief is the shadow granted substance. By pain is the sinner reborn saint. And we are cast in bitter-edged remembrance, alone and in the essence of our taint. Riddle and recall are blended blindly, venom in the vineyards of the damned, flames and tongues of ice that caper nearly twice as long as life for any man. Death is but an instant in the pattern. Life is but an instant less than death. For all my dreams and dares I am but human. I pay the pagan's price for every breath. Selling gods of gold and prayers in plastic, buying penance paid with others' blood, stretching time as taffy spun, elastic, until we close our eyes for common good. The Nosferatu's dream, it is illusion. It calls me with a whisper and a tear. 8 years in hell for moments' dark confusion. I curse the God who granted my life here. Pain is but the pattern to the precipice. Dreams are but for waking in the dawn. Riddles born and answered to a mangled kiss. The sleeper wakes to find the light is gone. I won't explain the Nosferatu's dream. That could take the next hour. It does occur from time to time in my writings. And it was an actual dream. All right, now we're getting started. A dark liqueur. And through cool and cruel vermilion lips the web is woven. The huntress sips a dark liqueur. Paradise and paradox. The shadow forms only with light and walks away, dissolving in the dark. To taste the softness with a hunger, not in haste, but in reverence and focused passion, held and commanded by a mind set against a legion swelled. I had a friend who, she had a lot of issues about things that had gone on earlier in her life, and a few of the poems over the next few have to do with counseling her. This is called Unborn Years. And the silent, sentient shadow of silence shall fall over a sad, seeming dream, woven of gossamer and cold tears, shed in precognitive memory of times that shall never belong to me, times that suffered in the grayness of unborn years. Dance of Death. Yes, this was a dark phase. And by the cold and careless waters of time's river, the shadow stands bathed in the mists of a memory whose backwash is like a mated spider's dance of death. Sad, impassioned, but necessary for time to tumble on. And when the present becomes past, time's giver melts into the flow of a proud and untold story once held dear by a mindset split by a single breath, shared by two strangers who never were and yet are gone. Faceted Sphere 27. To touch, for just a fleeting instant, the quintessence and the antithesis of all I'll ever, never know, but for the laughter of the fate of feeling triumph in the pain of saline rain, bought with riddles and denials. Presence is the mockery, and cruelty is not bought for a price more precious than sanity. The vanity of love and lust again. A locked instant in the stream of time. And when at last passes this iota of remorse for illusions held in fond remembrance, do not judge too harshly the flow and course of a sickly heart. Do not acknowledge a chance to taste the amber fruit that dangles so unappetizingly before you, for the fire burns deep valleys in the flesh and soul, to show to all the folly of a fool's desire, as turns a thought unspoken to the sun. Cold shades and blind parades of time will never share within a lost moment. Silence serenades us for a moment. Then I avert my eyes. This was actually written to a co-worker of mine who I found very attractive, and one day our eyes met and there was a spark, and I wasn't in a place to consider anything. So I averted my eyes, and later on that evening wrote this poem. Now we're getting ready for the transition, people. Here comes the big one. Here's what you came for. Love Gods of a Forgotten Religion. I really like a recording I did of this a few years ago for one of my CDs, where I recorded it in my own voice. Then I re-recorded over top of that 5 or 6 other readings without listening to the one, just trying to keep basically the same timing, putting each voice through a different filter. The net result, it gradually built until there were half a dozen voices, and then it faded away until there was just the one voice. And this is about everything. It's the only poem I've ever been heckled during. My friend Dan McTaggart, West Virginia Beat Poet Laureate a couple of years ago, one time he came to a reading of mine and he heckled the structure of the last stanza. Remind me to kick his ass sometime over that. Love Gods of a Forgotten Religion. Apollo pales and sails across a sky of colors intricate, slate gray and a blue like the eyes of Aphrodite, impregnating memory with a starting point for blending, bending the spectrum into greens of life and the violets of passion. And in these times we are the love gods of forgotten religion, mythic mysteries that stir the slip of idols to be cast for a past we abruptly dropped, like a half-perfected statue of a cat goddess. Modesty growing moss on stones that slide deep into the silence. They are recalled, they and their kin, for they left their stones, their temples, their tales of heroes and heroics. Permanent subtext for the muscles of imagination, flexed in a show of strength, the length of thought caught not on the brambles of distraction. With incantated prayers, we are the love gods of a forgotten religion. Chants and cants, and my how we prance without pants in the trance of our blood chemistry, going to alchemy in the laboratory of evolution, or hormonocentric heresies forsworn for the priests of a fed hunger. We shall not leave such Olympian statuary. Nary clue will endure that with motives pure and thoughts unsure, we cured Gordius of the intricacies of logical whim. The sword of Alexander, ample answer to the recent regent riddles of barren paramours. For on these shores we are the love gods of a forgotten religion, knowing that, in the eyes of the romantic, a pigeon is a dove, pure and perfect sacrifice for the price of kisses bartered for blessings, spread in a holy oil of the skin, shared in a heated suspension. Freya passes and serenades of Raji are unrecorded, paper faded and temperaments jaded in the ironic skepticism of youth and truth obscured by desire, fire to a pyre of inconvenient hopes that rope us in a bound harness of caresses, cauterizing our bleeding, needy hearts. We are love gods of a forgotten religion. The idols are left as curiosity for tourists yet unborn. Shorn of tableau like a Nazarite's hair, heir to the wonderment of children and lovers, innocents seeking answers that they alone can understand and cherish. Long-haired star. From a chromatic coma, the tale tells the tale as a talisman of the mentation mentioned in well-intentioned tensions. Tentative and talkative, we talk the walking of wailing walls, walla of the boudoir, bouleversement of the vestal vows. And the sky is iridescence with the scent of photons, found drifting in parallel to the precipice of thought. Caught not in the slipstream lip dreams of kissing candidates for kinship, the wending wetness of a tender touch parried into paradise. Priceless princesses prize their predation, the prey and the prayer of silent seductions, wordless witness to wonder, wandering like the hands of a handsome stranger, stringing the wet frets of a well-tensioned instrument of tenderness, intending less. Listening to the glistening, hear it echo in the silence. Violence in the sphere of Aphrodite, mystery in the hands of Hercules, and the minstrels of Midgard are made mute for a moment, allowing the stones to sing the song of longing and belonging. From a chromatic coma, the tale tells the tale as talisman of the mentation mentioned in well-intentioned tensions. Tentative and talkative, we talk the walking of wailing walls, walla of the boudoir, bouleversement of the vestal vows. By the way, a comet is its name means long-haired star. Just thought I'd throw that out there. My hands upon your hips, something a little intimate. Placing my hands like an interrupted prayer upon your hips, I feel you move. I feel your rhythm. I feel the power of your body as it does not surrender to me, but shares with me the silent ammomancy of your passion. And I am lost. I am tossed. I am crossed from horizon to horizon as I play Atlas to your Apollonian light, holding you aloft to keep the winds that rise between us warm and fragrant with mingling sweat and a glistening light that is reflected from candle flame. Placing my hands like a prayer fulfilled upon your hips, I feel you move, and I, within and without, can only marvel at your beauty, and the moment extended into eternity as a memory. Perfect. As you may have noticed, I'm very into mythology. One of the most interesting characters I've run across in mythology is Endymion. Endymion was a shepherd who Selene, the goddess of the moon, fell in love with. And she went to Jupiter and begged that he make Endymion immortal so that she could marry him. Jupiter had a sense of humor. He made Endymion immortal, but put him into a permanent sleep. He can't ever wake up. But every night, Selene visits him and makes love with him. And they have over 100 children. So, there's a lot of different ways you can play that. Fortunate Endymion, whose sleep does not give pause to his love, but places him in the land of dreams that are near as perfect as his lover, who creeps upon him at night to take her fill of his presence, riding the sky in silence and pale majesty, kissing his face, his hands, his chest, and taking pleasure in his slumber. Umber not to her rapture, for he gave his waking cognizance to give her eternal bliss and joy. O happy shepherd, poets dream of love beneath your mistress, kissed by her light and gentle passions as she rises from the sea. Her magics soothe his nightmares. Her touch brings serenity. Here in the chamber of the good goddess of the moon, He fills her every shadow with his very form, warm to her colding touch. His loins her chariot to rival that of the sun god's passage. Heat and light and the pounding of waves of red and white that foam and crash in tidal intersection of these lovers of myth. Coveted desire, fulfilled and spilled not in the ink of bards, but epic beyond mere words, the impression of her hands on the chest of a lover, balancing her ride across his firmament. We eventually got to the point where, in this world, a lot of relationships take place at a distance. Whether you're talking about over the phone or in chat or messenger or whatever. This poem was actually written back in the mid-90s, when this had just started to become a major phenomenon. At a distance undetermined is the name of the poem. At a distance undetermined, words taking aspect from expressions, hand-hunting and pecking instead of caressing, the true nature of the romantic rises to the top like magma in the cone of a dormant volcano, ready to boil over with consequences to those standing too close. But beauty, at a distance, undetermined. And to the fire gods who brought the heat, a satisfaction that lingers long after the last sex flush has cooled. And the world that is construct not of the hands of a man and a woman, only guessing at the flavors of the kisses that rain on totems, that rain on the domain of our passions, unstoppered like the bottle of a gin, allowing the magic to breathe in a cloud of vapors that coalesce in a fury and flurry of locked doors and lace, bought for an instant's show, discarded in the tearing of a veil aside, to open wide the temple of a promised world, strange and dangerous, but beauty, at a distance, undetermined. The word soubrette is French for a mistress. The title of this poem is Soubrette, My Heart Blossoms. My heart blossoms and the petals are fragrant like the wrists of a mistress, stained and ordained with a perfume prepared to meet the expectations of a lover. My heart blossoms and the colors explode in the spectrum of ancient light, caught at the far end of the universe, perceived new, but from the beginning, what always was. My heart blossoms and all the thorns melt and run into nothingness, for pain is not regent in a world where there are the petals and fragrance of your lips, ripe with emotion and hope. The mirror called your name. It's about missing somebody who you've been with and isn't there now, temporarily or permanently. The mirror called your name, it missed your image, seeing it now only in my eyes and expressing surprise at your absence. So long, like a breathless man begging air in a shuttered cell, hell in every breath and the light you afforded, stolen away. The mirror called your name, and I told it you were not to be found, pounding my chest in exaggerated defiance of my own agony, bluffing the demons that smiled at the wild sorrow in my purgatoried eyes. The mirror called your name, and I cursed it with a word that split it, then fractured the twain into 10,000 tears that fell into the porcelain void, each silver laughing as it shattered into dust. Okay. Several years ago, when I was living in Mississippi, a gentleman asked me if there were any modern poets I wasn't a particularly big fan of. And I admitted at the time I wasn't a particularly big fan of Donald Hall, who was a big name in poetry at the time. Went on a few years after that to become the U.S. Poet Laureate. But I had read one poem of his that I liked. And in it, the line, "I do poetry," kept being produced. I believe the name of the poem is "To a Waterfowl." Look it up sometime. He said, well, write something similar to Donald Hall. And I wrote this poem and sent it to him, and I liked it. So it went into my good bin. Most of the poetry I write goes into my bad bin. Now, before you say, well, that's a lot being thrown away, it is a lot because there's about 30-some thousand poems in my good bin. The bad bin probably is 10 times that. So, I rained poetry. And this is about my mindset when I write. There is no fear on the edge. Joy. Joy is what I find in the instants between moments when my feet are touching nothing but sky and the rocks recede to return, sooner or later, driven by grave gravity and the intemperate nature of natural law. But in the brisant moment, leaping from precipice to precipice, I am reborn, triggered and transfigured. Worn away are the chains of, the pains of, the stains of mortal mediocrity, and I am one with the clouds. And I rain poetry, for that is my nature. As you turn your face skyward to catch a few drops on a tongue parched by the dry air of memory and the sun of shallow sentiment sold in the hallmark rack in the name of mass seduction, and I rain poetry, to irrigate the fields of forever that make them ready for the seeds planted without your realizing it, when you waved to me, as I ran the cliffs, high above the plains of stale acceptance, and danced, and danced, and danced like a hurricane at the thought of you, naked in the rain. And I rained poetry, bringing the thunder at the appropriate moment when all other senses were spent, and only sound could penetrate the wet shell of overloaded synapses, what passes for the echo of fire that surged and purged the very ions of our irony. And I rained poetry, calling the winds to lift me, to gift me with the words that you would carry, eroded into your sandstone soul. Never more the monolith, but an aggregate of your essence with flecks of my pitch blend, bound to you by eloquence that quenched an ancient thirst, cursed to you in a garden that you will never see, except in the mirages of the maelstrom. And I rained poetry, and it was nothing compared to a single honest kiss, but it was, in the absence of passion, a worthy Gollum in the armies of solitude, up on the cliffs where I still dance with the winds and call the thunder, even when no one watches, or cares, or dares to dance along. For that is my nature. Over the years, the ebb and flow of relationships ebb and flow. And many of the following poems have to do with different relationships. I'm not going to go into too much detail in the description, rather let you enjoy them for what they are. This is called A Penanced Heart. I will stand by the gate and wait for you until the sun is set. And if you do not show, I will know that you weren't coming. And only then will I know for sure if you were my canker or my cure. I will speak in whispered hush and crush the gathered flowers in solemn hands, waiting by the gate where we kissed, resisting the gray of the stone and sky and time. And if you come, I'll know at last what was your wager when the die was cast. I will believe in what you had said, though bed and doorway long vacant of you, whisper silent seditions to forget your touch, and much as I could, I will not break my vows. And should I cross this bridge alone, there'll be one less sin for me to atone. If you notice me smiling next to last stanza, I suddenly remembered who this was about. And the circumstances under which it was written. A pallid sense of the truth. You hold my soul in hands that grip cold steel and leather bands of inspiration. What shall I give, what shall I live as monument to that which you share? A care, aware of my own mortality, morality split like hairs of reason, seasoned with the variety of life. And I love you in a tangled way, passion and pleasure and patience and pain, staining the seeming sackcloth of this hermit. You hold my soul in hands that grip cold steel and leather bands of inspiration. When I wrote this poem, I did not expect it to be as popular as it was. I don't write for popularity, I write for legacy and to get it out. An illusion of gray. There is an illusion of gray on eyes that lost their way in the mists of love. Romantic hazes obscuring the colors, kissed by the morning and the night. I see you in nectarine golds and reds, ripe as any blossom in a garden alive with the passions you stir with a smile. I dare not close my eyes for fear that you will dance away with the will-o'-wisp memories of lovers unworthy and forgotten. I will not lose my way, for you are incandescent, and your light shows my path in perfect cut, stone after blessed stone to tread upon. I perceive your beauty in spectra sudden and sustained by words and a touch that blinds me to all but you and all you would have me see. I have sold my illusions and purchased eyes with my passion, my obedience and my tenderness, offerings to a goddess worthy of my worship. There is an illusion of gray on eyes that lost their way in the mists of love, romantic hazes obscuring the colors, kissed by the morning and the night. Arch of Triumph. You arch your back. Let me try this again. You arch your back in triumph, taking my surrender with passion and pleasure, and a measure of celebratory fireworks in the skies of your eyes. The laurel wreath crowns your victory in encircling my entry into the city of your soul, to pray for your mercy and your grace in accepting my end of resistance. On Pain of Life. I remember this one. On pain of life, I pledge to you my passion and my peace. My memories fade to nothingness. My hunger knows no cease. I shall not want or waver for the carving of my fate into the wood of destiny. And on your dreams I'll wait. On pain of life, I enter days full grateful for each word you shared with me as prayer, to the divinity of me stirred. And I will walk where you decree and burden twice my load, and ready to steady when you stumble or are weary, further down this road. On pain of life, I pledge to you my honor and my hand. In dangers new I'll champion you, and for your purpose alone shall I stand. Remember the poem a few poems ago talking about long-distance relationships? Say no more. The pleasure at a distance. I bless those fingers born of necessity, freeing you of desire as they work their magic in my name, and no shame in the dreams you float upon as they take my part and cast a spell I know well, to transcend and befriend the desires I would kiss that I miss so far away, and play a cunning song on the taut strings of your heart and soul. I kiss the night in your name. Remember me to the fantasy to one day, roll again into darkness together. The Rapture of Time. The seconds run slow into the minutes, fragments of the hours spent suspended from the skies in raptured silence by the sweet transfiguration of your passions. Fashion me a memory of the wax of tears, not shed in dread, for we are ahead of fates that would pursue us unto a sorrowed death, but we are the children of joy this night. Hold me and feel the heat rise from my flesh. Hold me and feel the stone, softened with kisses, to rise again to your prayer and necessity. Hold me and allow me the honor of your love. The hours run slow into forever, never lost, but spent in barter for memories and moments, caught like the taste of sweet icing spread on the confection of your beauty and sensuality. The Night of a Thousand Colors. I don't know the exact day I wrote this poem, but I know the context in which it was written. There's references to a couple different fractured relationships. And I know this was written after I moved to Los Angeles in 1996. The Night of a Thousand Colors. crisp, cold, and calculating, the proper pronouncements on tongues cut from leather, birthed in a sea of tranquility and madness. The blossom on a daffodil crushed, a poet's hushed prayers, the stairs that ascend a tower, friend to the night of 1,000 colors. Duller than plain song, duller than a white plastic knife, serrated ridges worn off on the edge of the picnic table, where we spread a feast, halfway down the road to the farthest ocean. Another catalog case of illusions and fantasies, to sit on a shelf forever, like a lost clay wizard, forever wondering of the exile from his brother. Another time, another place, another face, and another crime. Red as lips in shy surrender, indigo in the night, hallucinations, benedictions, and sacred vows turning sanctuary into a prison, and survival into slow, lingering, wasted death. But my breath will not be wasted, and colors tasted, never forgotten, as long as I have words and the will to use them. Extemporanee. I tend to write all my poems in a single draft. People gripe on me for that, and I, for a long time, kind of felt bad about that. But then I read George Gordon, Lord Byron, wrote the exact same way. He compared it to being a hunting tiger, and if he misses his prey on the first lunge, skulks off into the jungle. I have but one heart to share with you, to tear with you in the long nights of sorrow this life can invoke and provoke in even the most valiant of breasts. Only evil ever rests. Dreamers must be ever vigilant and resilient, to bend and snap back like rubber trees in the hurricane. Pain being our hemlock, and yet we never drink too deeply, think too deeply, that we cannot join hands and drag one another from the abyss with a kiss of light and love made in our hearts and minds before we ever touch skin within the womb of the world. Thunder swirled like candy apple shells before congealing, before revealing that there are happy endings, but not before the path to the witch's castle is walked on the way to the castle of the last crusade's reward. My sword for your hand, my shield for your touch, my prayers for your safety. For there is only God in heaven if you are in my life, forever. Obviously, since that relationship didn't work out, and I still believe in God, I was a little overstrident, perhaps. Flourish. Ah, yes, flourish. The wet slap of membranes catching wind as I fall, all memory cut and cobbled together like leather kissed by the craftsman's practice. He exacts his price after the cuir bolli is shaped, draped over the stone form made warm by the hot oil's cascade, tints of red and chases of gold, rolled together to calculate the arc of the archangels in taking of the blade into a heart that never dies. Blood richer than a foundry's furnace of fire and iron, tattooed bat wings spread to the elegant edge of emotion held hostage in a heart of gold. Older than the first song, newer than the dreams of a child's first moment of sentience, escaping to run barefoot through a spring's wet grass, sliding and falling but never calling for a quarter less than tarletans. New suns every day to chase the chill and the will of the epic picadors that drive rough needles filled with the venom of life into the heart of a winged bull, fully ignorant of the tragic error of their logic. For angels and dragons, wings feathery or leathery, open with a purpose to rise above the love of self and find resurrection before the cheering crowd grows silent so that he can hear the charging hooves coming down like thunder from Valhalla, an instant too late to dodge fate, but he falls with a flourish. In this next poem, Dram, I had a young protege who I thought the world of, and things just didn't work out between us. But this was kind of the contract we made with each other. It's called DRAM, as in small amount. The smallest unit, beauty and terror in trace amounts, it counts for little to our senses, but its impact is immeasurable, for it is undetectable, and thus gets past our guards, shards of the fractured crystal heart of a forgotten dragon, flechettes that forget nothing, for they are soulless, like so many lovers. But I have seen your fire, even banked it burns on, and I will warm myself one day when imitations are allowed again, in the dreams of the waking dead. Until then, let us drink our drink of trace elements, and I will teach you the alchemy of the heart. I have a series of poems that I call the capital T poems, because the titles are all spelt in all caps and they all start with the letter T. Testament. Can't think of all of them right now. But this one, Transcendence, is on the list. So think of the word transcendence in all capitals. This is about pulling away from a relationship and trying to get your crap together again. The heavens are in heat tonight for this penetrative dream. The iron lion stands astride memory. Manticore wings of black lace fragments of a leather lost to the weather of whim. To him alone there is an accounting. Countdown. Gray skies to brown toxic fumes as the hypergolic moments when soul and intellect touch in the ceramic chamber of a nautilus heart. The skies scream aside in a fictional friction of breath drawn out to thread like taffy pulled too long, an obit of an orbit, undecayed as the patina colossus pulls free his lame heel from the grounding earth and raises high the last romantic verb, lift off. And I am gone, gone beyond imagination, a consecration of madness, sold in gold and honeysuckle silver, quicksilver slowed to sublimate into a crystalline matrix of time. Farewell. Farewell. But it is no longer my concern, for I burn tonight in orbit no longer, stronger than an epiphany made construct in the shallows of an id. Dance of Darkness. I would not kiss you in the silence of light for fear that the demons would mock me and trade your place for another less precious, or my hands would reach and find nothing, nothing that I want as much as the darkness. Not without you, but within you, where I find my chaos and my peace, the release of fire and the warmth of cold complexity, drawing me in and down and through to the other side, where maybe you are waiting with a fragile-faced smile, or maybe a laugh of mockery, if I do not find the shallowed hall where you'd wait within and without me for the moment. All right. Sonnet. The well of life is love without fear. I'm starting to get my crap together here. If tomorrow is forever, then what memories will come today? Do we dare our dreams to demand from us our souls in lieu of our flesh in storied rhythms that hide the knives we keep in play while awaiting the judgment of our histories that have, anew, answered the questions we will torment ourselves with in reticence to judge ourselves guilty? Fealty being tested as we bested the beasts of our own intellects, driven to the precipice, stance of a dancer taking chances on knees that bend as requested, but groan at the totality of our conceit. Feet slapping time with the heartbeat held in hands that only see the blood running fresh to test the seal between our fingers as we linger over crime committed for which we will not be acquitted in the failed flesh. We are but shadow dancers in the failing light of love that hold in hands too small to raise a needed drink to parched lips, sweet and cold. Gibbous. My first wife, one night I saw her by moonlight in her bedroom. The shameless moon illuminating all the sins I imagined with you, scheming, dreaming of the frail silk-made window to the touch of my eyes, as you crossed the room into my arms, into my soul, into my night. And I thanked the moon for the pale blue curve of your breasts. I had an on-again, off-again relationship with someone who is known in the legends of my mythology as the Panther. And once she came out to visit me in L.A. She lived in Florida at the time. And after a weekend of us, yes, no, insanely, she went back to Florida with nothing settled. This poem is called Raven. Taking the blank dare, tabula rasa, the words run past like dust, crushed stone powder, to match failed ardor, a parlor trick for slick magics, prepared beforehand, the patter of tiny feats, cunning sweets, shared on a tray of low-end straight, where the suicide king wears his heart on his sleeve. Leave, now, before I change my mind and find a reason for you to remain. And yet, it is too late. For I wait for a reaffirmation, a remembrance of a dance, told only in metaphors on freshly waxed floors where the dance of death steals the final breath. In your arms, promised decades ago, and only delivered on the wings of a raven on my writing desk, as the sun sets over the Pacific, to cry myself to sleep, as you have deserted again. Chromatic metaphors at a up time, romantically. Your skirt swirls in chromatic metaphors, floors tilt and the flowers dare not wilt in this atmosphere of fearless peers. Tears shed are dead and fall like barriers to the juggernaut of a karma cut from dreams. I am destiny and memory, and you are passion and delight, the cost of hope, a prayerful salary to the gods and goddesses of the night. Was that me who laughed? Or was it you? First, I mean, for we both fell to the moment, motioned into the current of the challenge of the deep balance of epitaphs unwound, soundless as the eyes of angels closed. You are music and confection, an allegoried perfection I dreamt of once, but never dared remember until now, the sacred cow of a religion of romanticism. The lights are casting shadows somewhere, but not here, not now, for nothing is hidden, and we are bidden to pass through the arch, triumphant and tender, defenders of our hearts, surrendered in the hypergolic heat of discovery. I have a set of poems called the Golden Heart Cycles. There's 49 of them. No, don't worry, I'm not going to do them right now. They were written to a protege of mine. And something just didn't work out between us. It was very weird. But a few years later, I wrote this poem, and some people count it as the 50th Golden Heart poem. And predators and editors declared this the poem of 2001 and named me Poet of the Year. I think it was 2000. The Patchwork Skirt of My Love. Interestingly enough, the first place I submitted it refused to print it, saying that it was too obscurant. There were words in here like brandy wine that no one would understand. The sound of soft fingertips across the strings of a lute, strumming the memories, humming the melody of life. And I am lost in the possibilities of your presence, pleasant peasant prayers that lead to the summit of the mountains in the distance, where legends reign. Kings cannot know this brandy wine, princes pass perplexed, and all the bishops seem ignorant of the nature of God, when their ignorance of the crux of creation is displayed, paraded in the sudden dance of a smiling child by the fire, and I am lost in the reverent reveries of this revelation. Play for me that melody, the one you tried to teach me, who you tried to reach me with when I despaired of lost love, and the angels and fairies all seemed annoying pinpoints that pricked and sticked and stole the moment that was mine. And you came for me, barefoot and arrogant, like a poet. And the fires swam into the sky, and I was reborn, torn to pieces and reassembled like a patchwork skirt, to brush your bare legs in the summer heat, and to defeat the angry winds that would come down from the mountains, mounting the horses of hoarfrost to charge your charms. I live now in more than just abstract recollections of a score of forgetful lovers, who would not give me second thought were it not for the trinkets of my words they wear as bright badges, as they tell their tales of the pale blue moon of memory. And they don't wear the patchwork skirt of my love, or play the lute. I had a good friend I had met in the mid-90s. And a few years after that, we entered into a long-distance flirtation. And this is called The Butterfly for Melanie. You never felt my breath upon your breasts or tasted the heat of my mouth on yours. And yet we were intimate. Closer than many, closer than most who call their fantasy ghosts when trapped in the tomb of shallow passions. Your voice shines like a light in the night. We spoke in hungry sentences from one ocean to another, as we lay on cold beds and summoned heat to melt the metaphors of lonely lovers, one speaking the amancies, the other living them. Had I the magic to move more than your heart and hands, I would have battered down dimensions and brought you face to face to this place, where legends penetrated more than just the mists of mythologies, more than lies where your fairy wings would spread to the ceilings. But I am mere mortal, an amamancer at best, and you needed more than my spells, despite my words and lust, that crushed me when you spoke of others, comforting you in your cage of shadows at the other end of the rainbow, and you doubt whether I would write of you. Doubt no more. It's funny, I spoke to her just the other day, and she said, "Did you say there was a poem about me in this book?" I said, "There's two. I thought you never wrote about me." Oh, well. A Kiss in Dreams Forbidden. Twice in my life, I got involved with women who were still married to someone else. In each case, the relationship was supposedly completely fractured. In one case, I was lied to about it. In the other case, I didn't really ask the right questions. A Kiss in Dreams Forbidden. I sing myself to sleep. Wordless tone poems that measure memory. Memory of events unborn. Sleep. The gateway to the chambers where lays my lady, waiting. A kiss in dreams forbidden to me in this world by the stances that surround me. Guardians of the night. Guardians of delight. Gardens of the light that shines through gloaming gossamer. I sing myself to sleep, touching hand to face a treasured fantasy. Fantasy of you, draped in lunar webs of luminous desire. Wet with sighs and afterthoughts caught in your hands as I passed, never closer than a whisper, deep inside you. A lover not in fact, a lover in abstract, another solemn pact, broken only in the heart and mind. I sing myself to sleep, fingers twining the hair of angels now fallen on the sword of desire, wishing to taste hungry feast, given and taken, thirst swallowed by the sea of your tempests, that carry me out to the brink of a land of dreams. A dream I can fashion, a dream of your passion, supreme in my memory over lesser loves, real and realized. You could not say the words. And that's the intro to the next poem, which is You Could Not Say the Words, because in one case, in one of these relationships, they couldn't bring themselves to say the L word. You could not say the words when the time came, fear holding back the wet step across a Rubicon, I had already forded, sliding into you a sacrament. You writhed and sighed and tensed with every motion made, and splayed wide your form to swallow whole my every exploration of all but your soul, kept inviolate from me. And so I fed on your warm flesh and willing, eager enthusiasm, feeling legs entwine and the wine spilling from you as though uncorked from a vintage of jasmine and blood. You could not say the words, but spoke with hungry eloquence as merging lovers, unlabeled in your heart, but springing well your Venus flytrap on one who came to hear them. Yes, I'm a sexual entity, but I'm also a romantic. A horrible romantic. I'm still 17 years old in many ways. There was a woman I was involved with, and we went our separate ways. And over time, my perception of her changed. It's not a bad perception. We're still very good friends. This is called You Did Not Look the Same to Me. You called me when the night was dark and the little girl in you was frightened, alone, and with strange noises in the yard that were sent by Pan himself to drive you to call to me, though, 2,000 miles away, for all the gods and goddesses play matchmaker for the poets and the minstrels and the fools. For they love the sport and snort with glee when we are out of our shells and cracking hells like hazelnuts between our feral teeth. And you said, my voice comforted you, as yours did when I lay ill and pale, and yours was the only number I thought to call, and all your emotions stopped their discord and focused on me, friend and cast-off lover, to urge me to live and reach for the next sun like a despondent morning glory. And when I saw you next, friend and former lover, you did not look the same to me. For I had seen the skin of aching passion stretched taut by my kisses, feeling you toss yourself against the void, and listened to your gasps of surrender, to my vain attempts to show you of my love. All in vain. All in vain. All in vain. The friend who I called the butterfly, several months later I tried to reach her, and she didn't return my calls. She was off on a new adventure. And this poem is called Response to a Butterfly Silence. Silence does not wear you well, for you are a woman to be heard. What use have I of artifice if the stairs and tower are bereft of life, and passions are wasted on barren stairs, twisting into darkness? Speak, that I may know your name, your thoughts, your desires, and all the elements that make you live and make me celebrate you. For although you are beautiful, you are also friend. The veils of our essence. We dare not shed the skins, thin as they are with desire, for they are our only bastion against the loss of our boundaries. The veils of our essences, straining our fears, our tears, and all the fluids migrating in the tingling mingle of passion. We dare not open our eyes, for we might see what we surrender, pretender, contender for our souls. Lover and knave, mistress and slave, the veils of our essences, guarding our senses and pretenses, so we don't have the words to say what has happened in our holy hearts. We dare not touch with open hands, for we are unarmed and charmed by the night, by the magic that has passed in the night. Bright herald of a new regime of dreams, the veils of our essence are no longer of a separate weave, but breathe the mists of mysteries kissed in the emotive emotions of eternity. Piercing the night. My light shines into fresh corners, corners you have kept for me, swept for me, of the traces of desire burning in ancient ashes, in brass cups polished for my arrival. And I am the taper, I am the oil. I will not soil, but pierce the night to show you the way you never knew. And when we are through, we shall begin again, and memory will melt in the focus of our photons. Candle wax of your passion will warm us and conform us as the fantasies we fire. And I am the taper, I am the oil. I will not toil except for your pleasure, and measure this treasure in you. And we are not darkness, except in the solitude in which we intrude, to make our shadows on the walls of desire, with a fire we alone can spark, and held so long behind improper barricades. And I am the taper, I am the oil. I will the bright frost to a boil, and heat you with my penetrating rose-colored light this very night. This next poem is fairly interesting. It's called Gentle Soul, to the anonymous girl at Anastasia's Asylum. I frequented a cafe in Santa Monica called Anastasia's Asylum. Wrote there a lot. And one time I was sitting in there, and I noticed this young girl in there. She was reading, but there was something about her aspect. She was attractive, yes, but she was also, it looked like she was healing from something emotionally. So I wrote this poem on a napkin, copied it, took her the original, introduced myself, gave her it, said, I'm not here to hit on you, I'm not here to ask for a date or anything like that. I just wanted to give this to you since you inspired it. And I walked out. I've never seen her since. I see in you a gentle soul, maybe bruised, maybe frightened, but brave enough to save yourself when comes the time to take brightened visions into the tomorrows hollowed by those who have swallowed your tears and only smiled, beguiled by their own charms reflected in your soulful eyes. Striving for the heavens. How carefully God crafted you to bring back the sky above my soiled sensibilities. Tender tempest laying rain upon the furrows that were waiting so long, too long, for an excuse to burst forth with life and light and the luxury of love. Rising to the limits of the light of delight, the night is no longer regent to me. Black cloth, sackcloth, and the moth drops his veil to sail on seas he'd forsworn a year or more. A tear to score this symphony of senses sent to the upper limits of the light of delight. On wings still soar, I will soar, to find a foothold in the clouds that proud Prometheus missed, stepping into something more than mythological, defying all logic, and filling me with the dreams you shared with me at distance dwindled, to where even the sweat of our sated forms is indistinguishable, as we watch it rise in vapors to the heavens, to celebrate this moment in the madness of the morrows we borrowed, to live, to love, and leave not to mediocrity. Striving for the heavens I have found you, and not settled for less than what I sought for, fought for, and am spent and content and given over to eternity. I apologize for the interruption there. Ariel, the cat, is demanding attention, but she's going to have to wait. Settle down. The Taste of Jasmine. I wonder what this poem's about. Oh, I know. I trace my desire in racing heart and parted lips, pressed to kiss high hemline of your skirt to flirt with madness, and the scent of warm jasmine, blooming in your garden to pardon me my hunger to draw the nectar of the sweetly damned to serve as a draught of communion wine, from a vessel soft and luxurious, with lips that answer back, as I lap the honeyed dew off petals that infiltrate my soul and cleanse my doubts of purity and purpose. For in the pleasure I grant you I am proven worthy suitor to the surrender already given, but requiring external confirmation of my deeds. Needs alone not proving this ardent beau's duty, I will drink until you, who holds the chalice encased in form warm and wondrous, calls stop, and bids me enter into heaven with her blessing. Down to the darkness. And so we are down to the darkness, the corner of shadows where we are guided by the blinding heat of our hungers, fingertip traceries of the circuits of seduction. Your loins are smooth and warm, and my hand is alive as we send sensations back and forth until they merge and we hear them, whispering the joy sparked in effervescent friction. My lips explore and curves amend themselves as your body stretches to my worship, like a cat to the lone shaft of light in the corner, slowly grooming herself for the next meal. We are many hours from sleep, but we rest our souls banked in the fires of our joint enjoyment and the balance of soft and rigid membranes, making their peace with our contentment. One of my more storied poems. Don't worry, we're getting there. The Philosophy of Dreams. I, a long time ago, recorded this and put it on archive.org. And a few years afterwards, I got a message from someone saying, "Is this you?" And he sent me a clip on YouTube of a rave in, I believe, Amsterdam. And there was this techno music going, and in the background was my voice reading The Philosophy of Dreams. The artist who had done the recording had found this clip, and he couldn't figure out who I was, so he went ahead and used it. We became friends. His name's Ophidian, and we've collaborated on a few others, including one called Nightfall Angel, which went to #1 on the industrial charts in the Netherlands. So, but I'm very, very, very fond of this, The Philosophy of Dreams. Touch me, for I am flesh as you, given to the same needs for air and food and warmth, communicated between two bodies at rest, touching in all aspects possible and many improbable. As I pull a cat out of the quantum corner and make it into roses to bloom in arcs of every color, of a spectrum of another sphere, as they fill the room with exotic perfumes I brought back with me on a trip to the stars. Sing for me. I will smile and touch your hair and dare to sing along when I know the words, for we are at best in blended voices and thought and flesh. Yes, I recall mere moments ago when I could not tell the terminus between your light and my darkness, as angels averted their eyes and we made the case for unity between us. It was, yes it was something I will write of when I catch my breath and can find enough words, unique and perfect and passionate enough. Dream of me, for I dream of you. I dreamt of you even before I heard your voice, before I knew your name, when all I knew was that, by the same evidence that I know there is a God, you exist and existed, and I would find you, even if I had to climb mountains of madness and sail forever, it seemed, on seas of the mediocrity of life, for there is too much to be lost to the world if I was right, if love is and was and will be regent. Regret wets sweated sins, but I'm a penitent pilgrim, lost on the road to Golgotha, seeking something more than the philosophy of dreams. A metaphor with wings. In the merging we emerge, wings wet but willing, the killing jar far from our visions. Prisons of penance left in the cracked chrysalis, and we are away on winds of spun glass and asterisk of arch endings, pretense pretending the past was cast by hands aware of futures yet unfolded. Wax-sealed envelopes of time we saw through for a day, cauterizing our caricatures in impure thoughts, caught in hot flashes and the lashes of the leather of age, page after page after page of the book of memory, whether we leave or stay. Reborn. Spidering cracks in the tacky glass at the temperatures we dwell. Hell knells well the call of desperation, courage cages of expectation. We hurl ourselves against the steel. We whirl ourselves upon the wheel. We curl ourselves until we feel reborn. The totality of the futility of the utility of our free wills, knowing well that in the end it is not our design that laid the mortar of our frustration. We steel ourselves against the night, conceal ourselves from coming light. We seal ourselves with frail delight, reborn. Drag daggers across the thin skin and win again the sin we shed. Take the snake of William Blake and give wings to the whims of irony. We beat our breasts in hidden rage. We cheat our fates with mock courage. We meet our ends with penanced wage. Reborn. Peeling out of paradise. The clutch slips, and your hips engage the road of my hunger, grinding gears of the fraction of the traction you took on my heart, peeling off the rubber and blistering the black top of my soul, parallel lines to the horizon I'll never see, for you left nothing but a trail and the distinct smell of the fumes of a familiar ether. Enchanted by Calliope. I watched you from a safe vantage point, planets away, but I could hear you play every note, every wordless word in an eloquence that defeats me. You have the angels and the demons and the dragons in your fingers, and as the final note lingers, I am made modest by the goddess who just stole my genius. Praying for the heaven. You dance in dreams you'll never see unless you look me in the eye, and lie that you cannot see everything I think and feel and cherish in houses of worship where you are my deity, and I am but an earnest priest, preaching sermons to the unsaved. Slave to my adoration and praying for the heaven, praying for the heaven, praying for the heaven I am unworthy of, but may yet be mine. New religion. I play thesaurus in a one-man solo act stacked against the so-so sobriety of the sages, aged like cheese in cloths that shield him from the flies of fresh inspiration. Hop wet, the flop sweat serves as a baptism of a new religion. High priest to the thoughts released in staccato trance states that grate on the syntactical synapses of the crowd. I don't want to sing, but I can't be still in the back row, listening to you getting it wrong, getting it on and on and on and on and on until the dawn yawns and we are sent off, still hungry. Open more than the microphone, open hearts and eyes and souls and minds, and find the whole surprise that starts us back to the top of the temples of time, the prophets of a new religion. New York, Rican, and the city seeks new angles to see something from a different perch. Church of stale circumcision, cutting off more than the fire, cutting off more than the four. This is the heaven. This is the hell we chose to loose upon the inordinate and ordinary, redeeming ourselves with hollow words and echoes of beats, retreating. That reference in the last stanza to New York Rican. I had gone to the New York Rican in 1996 or 1997 to watch a slam. I was wholly unimpressed with the quality of the poetry. There were some good performers, but wholly unimpressed with the actual quality of the poetry. Sad silhouette. I found you in the shadows, sad silhouette, a Catherine wheel, consumed and spinning sparks against an encroaching darkness. Marked for sorrow, you borrowed tomorrow to warm your hollowed heart. Part of the prerequisite for martyrdom to a false faith. Wraiths escape because they are already dead. But there was life in your pale form, warm but barely. But warily you gave me leave to weave ammomancies to cage the last breaths in your flesh, catching sparks as they sought to flicker and die, and braiding them with fingers already burned to black and bone, making a rope of hope to patch the bridge of sanity. Long minutes to hours, hours to days, prayers becoming hoarse and coarse as a persistence resisted the nature of my commitment, begging surrender and for me to tender the slender threads to save myself. And what then would be the histories, say, of love? I fed the fires with my flesh, washing wounds with tears. I do not know the end state of the fate we bait with our efforts. Perhaps we are but Spartans at the pass, buying time for the victors, slowing the hordes that seem somehow to be everywhere at once. But I am given to the challenge and will remain, for pain is small price to pay for hope. Ignore. Alleyway echoes capture the essence of something I have not yet been able to label, but something worth cherishing. Hope is perishing, and a dream sticks to the roof of your mouth, like creamy peanut butter of a stubborn consistency, diluting the pleasure of the taste, side effects polluting the endless sea of memory, where we will sail whether or not we want to, trapped to fail or to conquer by the currents we cannot fight, but can stir against, to nudge from left to right of the buoys of bobbing catastrophe. Free to choose to some degree, willing to resist despair and refuse to bow to the fates, when they seem their most sure that they have us. Their wishes win. Ignore. Champion. Yes, I've been known for overstating my, maybe not overstating, for being a little too eager to serve a relationship. Send me for water. I'll bring you a sea. To a lover's perception, a scale of degree. Granting your wishes is all that I crave. Making me your champion, your martyr, your slave. For what is a lover if less than the tool for the dreamer's desires to lend visions fuel? If we are not the answer to the questions that burn, are we worthy of passion when the heralds return? Grant me a mission, order me a quest, scale the far rainbow, vie with the best. Let me the proving of the depth of my will, give me the challenge for me to fulfill. Along those same lines, inhale me. Inhale me. Let me fill your frame with the nameless emotion I shed at the merest mention of you. True to the vapors of vague vanity, I crave your taking me in, skin to sin to win the thin thought that traps me, enwraps me, caps me in a crown of thorny irony. Inhale me. Fill to full your lungs and fill your head spin with spectres I speculate upon in words that whisper sated satyr sibilance, to dance dreams as you sleep the deep creep of darkness, guarded by the cloud shrouds of my winds. Atmosphere of the dear fear, that clears tears from cheeks better spent for kisses. Inhale me, for I am already reduced to a sublime fog of passion, seduced by the sedition of my vows to love, and to those who serve as agents to the transfiguration of lame logos, to the chanted cant of the choirs of heaven, heaving high the argent arguments that in the end serve no purpose. Dust. Dust, infinite and obstinate, scuffed into crowding clouds, proud powder of my passage. My grandfather walked with me to see the other side, and yet he reached it first, my thirst denied. For now. For now. Brave friends and those who pretended to a heart untended and intended for a more worthy birth. Love, built on trust, crushed and hushed as we usher out our usual usury and sentimental Shylock's self-interest. For now. For now. The Ancient Brain. I love this poem. It talks about how, however much romanticism we may pile on top of attraction and sexuality, the ancient brain is where really decisions are made about attraction. Your sheen of sweat whets my appetite for the nights of incoherent light merging into new colors. Hold tight to all my angles, and I will intersect memories that you did not know you were capable of, but dimly saw in a fantasy rendered in colors of sulfurino and pale blue. Sound for me that song again, the one with only rhythm and words, that works only in the context of satin and silk and scents that went straight to the ancient brain. Alchemy of Orenos. Alchemy of Orenos, the mastery of thought, what we were when we were young, and our tongues sought music in the strings of things wrung from the sweatband of discovery. This will cover me in fallen leaves of a youth I have forgotten, except in regret. wet and sticky like so many things I've left behind, winding down like the end credits of an indifferent feature film, watching the stars rise while knowing that these glowing orbs made pinpricks by the years of distance are not moving, but I and my world are, far away from each yesterday, wrapped in tissue paper to save for the next season of love, and hope held in a vessel of wrestled conscience. Now we had the alchemy of Orenos. Now we have Orenos. Angle of attack, stack the chips and lips and hips, deliver the killing stroke, coup de grace, pass the plate and wait for the collection of the mid-course correction. Erections of steel penetrating the clouds that crowded the stars just a moment ago, demystified the pride we hide when we take in stride the crippling blow that came in low and slid under our radar and our sheets and our feats of expression. Become a digression from a hidden agenda. Splendor, pretender, defender, lover and friend, until the blades bend and they see we were not as stupid as they thought. "32 feet per second. That is the acceleration of a free-falling object in Earth's gravity. I know that because I was a science geek a long time ago. Yes, they had science back then. We hit rocks together. Splintered glass, pass the plate and hate the widow for her 2 cents worth. Earth, birthing bright premonition of the precognizant memory made mock in the hands of the clock, stalking us with the talking blues of hues of red, bled from lepers' thoughts, caught on taut trot lines, hooks digging in to secure the pure insecurity of our assurances and reassurances that stances dance in the light of a night, white with wonder and thunder, and under it all a call to hope, hopping on one foot, then another, mother to madness and dreams left to steam until cool enough to touch in a manner meant to vent our vexed and sexed pretext, wrapped in a tapestry of tepid transparencies to justify our jousted juices, jet to wet, then set us on the path of least persistence, insisting on assisting us with the rationale of love, and I would gladly pay twice the price of Odin for the wisdom to know the truth. To those of you who do not follow your Norse mythology, Odin gave up one eye for wisdom. I'm basically saying I would gladly be blinded if it meant I could know the truth. Back in 1996, 1997, Claby Schley Walsh hosted for 2 years the Southern Poets Reading Tour. I went both years. They were interesting events. And for one of the years, I wrote this poem at the end of the weekend. The Garden of Souls. Sacred cinnabar placed against the fire to bleed, living silver into the riverbeds of the alchemists. Red to liquid gray, playful imp of elemental conjuration unbound. Found sinew in stone, and so it goes in the Garden of Souls. Cautious lovers fooling no one, but feeding the hopeful romantics with their basket of loaves and fishes in a sacrament of silence. Dreamers finding new formulae to weave their night tapestries in earnest awakenings, unregarded as they hoard tomorrow. Children finding mother and father, barren wombs birthing life in a patina haze of morning mists kissed with the placental scent. Communion blood cups of blueberry wine and red wards painted by a kiss to signify nothing that can be explained in simple words. And through it all, a trip to Sinai, a transfiguration of the unseen, a unity unwound like bandages of a royal relic, mummified in clothes and myrrh and oils of trees that no longer grow on desert soil, toiling only to understand, for the sounds come freely and in great truth. My sisters, my brothers, my children, my lovers, and all the winds that stir the locks of hair misplaced like spineless horns of golden fire, I have seen the evocation. I have seen the summoning. I have seen life held in 20 hands to offer drinks of regent tears to those who thirst. Sometimes you just got to give up to love. Quit trying to shape it the way you want it. This poem, Release. I lay down my arms. The karma-coated sibilance reminds me of my own penance paid in cool charade of slick reflections refract the albedo of truth. A poet's words made phonetic photons of a light gone. Gone on beyond the accretion disk of this horizon, strong enough to bend the braids woven unafraid from the string of dimensions rolled up, to leave only 3 or 4 on the floor. We shift nervously from foot to foot upon waiting for new wine in old bottles to ferment, so that we may yet take a sip, promise before we choke on the dry repast of raven flesh grilled in the desert sun, our victuals won in the hunt of answers, cautiously reworded to play more pleasantly on the pale palate, when we cannot tell the truth without the chill that draws small hands to rub on lonely flesh, to find against the heat, left bittersweet in a fading memory of a swift madness. A soft madness embraced in a release of the dogs of dreams that lead the great hunt to the foot of the temple at the night where the last sacrifice is given, in shards of ardent poetry, when the cookie jar hearts break, and I lay down my arms. Almost there, people. Glad to see some of you have stuck it out. And of course, you'll be able to watch this on YouTube or on Facebook anytime. But I'm glad you're sticking it out when it's live. The gloaming light of midnight's meander. I did not see light in the same way, having heard it from your lips, falling in rainbow hues of gray and black, and a color not unlike red. How sad it would have been not to have the veils lifted by a worthy hand, to have missed this consolation, this kiss of inspiration, to have not known your soul, reflecting light in a different way than I do, though the physics of the act of reflection remain the same. But still, in your shadows, there is a different science, and I would sit as student while you taught me your vision. Capturing silence. Touch soft, and I will spin the clouds into starshine, to bring light to corners long forgotten, forbidden and forbidding. For I am not afraid of your darkness. I revel in it, for it is my native shadow, a creature of thoughtful underworlds, drunk on Stygian vapors of jasmine in your breath, in the darkness where my magics weave and wake and breathe a light unseen by mortal eyes, but felt on skin unsheathed, to take it in and nourish your soul with the dark amosynthesis of my dreams, which I make only in shadows, in corners you have never let another touch until now. Feasting on memory. Setting the thought like a table, I place the logic to one side atop the napkin, then fill the water glass with whimsy, cool, and to refresh a fevered word that might otherwise scald a tongue, too often shielded by the bland blandishments of an ordinary life. I will not use my fingers. I will eat slowly and savor the spices and remember my manners. And when I am finished, I will be nourished by thought and emotion and revelation, and I will help clear the table, sweeping away the crumbs of memory into a small pile to be pocketed when everyone else thinks they are merely to be discarded. For I may grow hungry for the taste of this moment again, someday. That really isn't the problem with me. I was blessed, cursed, whatever you want, with kind of an eidetic emotional memory. I can't remember all the details of something, but I can pick a moment in time and say, how did I feel? And then I can write from that, which is sometimes very useful and sometimes painful. Somebody who disappointed me immensely in a relationship, I told her to leave me alone, or her sobriquet would become an epithet. She pissed me off. So I wrote this poem. A sobriquet turns epithet. The prophecy is made. The diamonds turn to withered coals, the emerald dress to jade. A lover's kiss has gone amiss. The warmth too soon shall fade, and I am left to contemplate the shadows in the shade. The tapestry binds until the last cut unravels the patterns we'd bound. Hidden in weavings and testified leavings, the needle, once fabled, is found. And thus the riddle rides the hides of beasts of legend and myth, cutting with blades of lost serenades the soul from the troubadour's pith. A sobriquet turns epithet. The prophecy is made. The diamonds turn to withered coals, the emerald dress to jade. A lover's kiss has gone amiss. The warmth too soon shall fade, and I am left to contemplate the shadows in the shade. Last poem, people. I'm amazed my voice has held out this long. Impulse. I trace thoughts with a diligence deserved. Forms swerve to miss the pillars of immobile impatience. Waiting for their moment, not knowing if it is already gone. On beyond them when they blinked, a most unfortunate instant. They will never know they missed. But I will not miss the moment, for I have learned to blink but one eye at a time. So I know what you are thinking, and I know what you want from me, and I am impatient enough to serve it to you on silver in the dark, to celebrate the thoughts that made the corner in time, to miss the pillars that linger still and forever. Thank you all very much who contributed to that book. Thanks to Larry Jaffe, who did the foreword. Thanks to Jan Innes, who helped me edit it. Well, who did edit it. And just thank you for everyone. Have a great evening. This will be available on YouTube, and this will be available on Facebook. So just take care, be safe, and don't be afraid to love. This is William F. DeVault, signing off for now.